welcome to Influencers Cafe. Today on the show, Douglas Ward. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing good. How you doing, Nico?
Good, mate. I've been enjoying your podcast. It's called The Truth with Douglas Ward or something.
Truth with Danger Doug. Yes, it is. Yes, it's a good. It's fun. It's good to be able to talk to people from different industries and talk about leadership change, trying to make a positive impact out there. So I think that's a lot of what we need right now.
Why the name Danger Doug?
When I was in the military, I was in skydiving school in the military. They call it free fall school, and I had 2 safety violations for pulling my ripcord too low. So we were supposed to pull the ripcord at a certain altitude, and I kind of went past it, and so that didn't endear me to the instructors that were teaching too much, because obviously I would put my life at risk and then putting their life at risk. And when I came back, the guys I worked with, they'd been trying to find a nickname for me because everybody had a nickname, and they were like, "You know what? I think we found your nickname, Danger Doug."
So it wasn't like a Halo high altitude low open.
It was. I hadn't advanced to that stage yet, so I was like on my 15th jump. But we were at. I think we jumped on that jump was about 13,000 feet.
I've never done a jump before.
Yeah, so it was probably at about 13,000 feet. I mean, I wasn't high enough to where I had to wear the oxygen yet. I hadn't made it to that phase of training.
So what gave you the idea of starting this podcast?
I think there's a lot of people out there in the leadership realm, and some of them kind of gloss over certain things, but I don't think sometimes you have to have those tough discussions in leadership. And those tough discussions, a lot of times, to me, it's basically about, it's not just, everybody wants their leader or the person that's the manager to be this great person, but a lot of people, I don't think they understand that the boss of the company is not the true leader. And I don't see a lot of people talking about that. The true leadership is the people that are there where the workers are at, the ones that are making everything happen on a day-to-day basis. It's the same thing in corporations. It's the same thing in the military. So I think there's a misconception. You have leadership up and down the company, but the ones that really have to get people to do their job and to do it with a smile, hopefully, right? It's those people that are down at the lower level.
Mm-hmm. So are you still in the military, or are you doing some other profession now?
No. So I'm out of the military. I retired in 2013, and I left that. I was working for the U.S. government after I retired, doing communications and some stuff like that, research and development. Did that for about 1.5 years, and then I went into corporate world and was actually working for companies that would try to sell stuff to the military or to the civilian market, in communications. And I didn't have a bad time, but after leaving that, I knew in my heart that I was already going to make the move to doing a podcast and starting up my own leadership development, and also helping people figure out how to make that change. What happens a lot of times, for example, in the military, or even in the civilian world, you have people that want to change careers. They're not happy with what they maybe went to school for or went to training for, and they want to make that big change in their life. But to do that, a lot of people are just too afraid to do that. So my thing is to try to get you in that mindset to make those changes, because a lot of times the thing that's going to keep you from making those changes is fear, and you have to overcome that fear.
Yeah, well, that's the trouble. If you're in a job for 4 or 5 years, it's like, well, it's hard to make that jump to just leave a job and hopefully you pull off entrepreneurship or something like that. And by the time you've got in a job that long, you've got like a long notice period, and then there's too much of a risk. So you almost need to be forced out of the job to make that jump.
Exactly. Yeah, a lot of times, and you have to. It's very difficult for me. My one supervisor and I, my director, him and I think we were just kind of not seeing eye to eye eventually. He had his way of wanting to do things. I had my way of wanting to do things. And he was geographically separated at the time. So I would be trying to update him on certain things. And I just felt he wasn't taking my input on what was really going on with the company to heart. So those are the things that, for me, it was a good walking away. That kind of sealed in my mind the mentality to move forward and start my own company.
So you're basically self-employed now.
Yes.
So you've we both. I think I started listening to the podcast because you interviewed one of my guests. Well, not my guest, but it's one of the same guests I had, Earl Gibson. So, what made you want to interview him?
You know, Earl was posting some stuff on LinkedIn, and I'd seen a few other things, but he kind of hit a nerve with me because also being a veteran and hearing his story. When he got out of the military, he was homeless. I think he's trying to figure out what direction he wanted to go. He was kind of lost. He had PTSD, and there's some things that he had to go through as a person to figure out who he was. And that's a big thing that a lot of people don't understand. They really don't even know who they are. They're always trying to impress people. You're always trying to be something you're not. Just be who you are. And the people that want to be around you, they will eventually surround you because they want to be around that energy. He brings a great energy. And at the time he was talking about Black Lives Matter and the funding of it. And I've followed politics. I've followed geopolitics. Everything along those lines, the economy. And I don't just do it for the United States. I've always kind of looked at everything in a strategic sense. And I remember I was looking at the way the world was going, and riots were breaking out here, riots were breaking out here. And I think we all see that the media has not been very forthcoming and honest with the viewing public. And they basically have chosen sides with different political parties. And I think that has been a huge disservice. They've gone from presenting facts and letting you make the decision to going out and telling you what they think you should hear. And that's all based upon the political party or the political powers that are that be. Now, interviewing Earl, that was kind of it was a good interview. I was a little surprised. I shouldn't say surprised, but I was when I asked him, hey, you were such a big follower of Black Lives Matter a few years ago, and we've discussed they have been hijacked. All the money's going to Democratic candidates in the United States, and the money's not really going to help Black lives. And I had asked, and as we were going through that, he was giving his take on that, and what where he was 2 years ago and where he's at now. And I said to him, I said, so he said 2 years ago I was in a bad place. I was in a very bad place. I was, he was kind of in a point where he wouldn't want to hang out with white people. So I said, so what you're saying is you and I couldn't have gone out and grabbed a beer or grabbed lunch 2 years ago? And he said, no. I had a lot of rage.
Big change.
So having gotten to know Earl a little bit, I look at him as a brother. I was in the military. You always, you didn't try to look at anybody by the color of their skin. It was, hey, did they show up? Did they do their job? Did they accomplish the mission? And those are the things, and that's why when I meet a lot of veterans, I try to let them know, I am your brother. And I think a lot of people, the civilian world sometimes I think could use a little bit of that. And I think that's part of the issue. We have so much going on where no one wants to talk to each other. I mean, families are splitting apart all over politics.
Yeah. So what was it you were doing in the military again?
I did communications. So I worked with my last 10 years. I did, I think, roughly 7.5 of those years with working with the Navy SEALs, doing their communications. And then I also worked, sometimes I'd, help support the Rangers, Special Forces. Some people call them the Green Berets. They don't like to be called that. They're called Special Forces. So I would be around those type of people. And those are the type of people that we had to support. So the job skills we had to be up at another level than the regular military guys. The standards were extremely high because you're basically with the elite, and we had to also get screened. And pass certain tests to be able to just work with them. So, we had to go through psychological screening, through taking written psychological exams, and then we'd have to sit down with a shrink, like a psychologist, and they would actually pick apart all our answers and ask us other questions to try to get into our head to make sure that we're the right fit for that type of place.
So you're like an IT guy, or you're basically using tools supplied to
Uh,
you? Or?
so we were. So my main job was supposed to be IT, but we also had to do radio communications, satellite communications. So we got cross trained on all of it, because there would be situations where you would have to go out alone, and you had to be able to do it all. And if you were running into issues, you had to have the foresight to be able to call back and talk to someone who had the knowledge or the skills to be able to walk you through something over the phone or through an email, things like of that nature. You had to be very forward thinking and very motivated.
Do you miss that kind of lifestyle on the forces?
I actually just dropped my daughter off. She's in the National Guard for the state of Florida. So she's doing some training because she has to go on a deployment soon. And she's going to be gone for 5 weeks. And when I took her up to the location where she's going to be, I dropped her off and I saw everybody out there in the military uniforms and all that. And I kind of was thinking back, man, I miss some of that. And once I dropped her off and got back in the car, I'm like, no, I don't miss it.
Why not?
I gave about right over 20 years active duty and then another 5.5 years in the reserves. So it was like 26 years I gave to the military.
Do people go
So
back into the forces?
I'm sorry?
Do people go back into the forces after a break sometimes?
Not usually if you retire.
No.
Yeah, usually if you retire, you don't go back in. Now, if you get out before you actually get a paycheck, for the rest of your life type of thing, some people will go back in. I did that myself. I was out for a few years in the civilian world, went into law enforcement in California, and, I was enjoying the California life, and then I had made the decision to go back in the military, and I went back in and did enough time to where it gave me a military retirement.
Mm-hmm. So America, I wasn't really that emotional about the politics until George Floyd. Basically, I was sitting in London one day and I saw this video of this guy, police officer on his neck, and I basically something snapped in me that made me so angry, and it just basically got me on Twitter. I was angry against the police basically, and I'm not going to delete these tweets that I posted because at the time that's what I believed. So I basically got really, really emotional about this situation. At the time I called it murder, but I've just been on a sort of emotional roller coaster, just following all the different posts and updates and reading everybody's opinions, talking different sides. And I think I can't believe the way America is right now. I just can't believe it. It's horrible.
Well, this is, and from my experience and watching the politics in the United States, this has been an ongoing issue of demonizing the police officers. Yes, you're going to have bad apples everywhere. You're going to have, some bad people in any profession. But I think for the police departments, what a lot of people don't understand is they have to go through quite a bit of testing, from psychological testing to interviews. They try to figure out what your reactions are going to be, the type of person you are, the background you have. And a lot of people don't understand it. It's very stringent testing in the United States. When the George Floyd incident happened, I was upset myself. I was thinking, what was going through those police officers' mind to do what they did. The thing that has bothered me even more is there's just so many different factors that are falling into this. Yes, did he die? Yes. And was it tragic? Yes. But now, all this evidence is coming out, all these different things that the press, we're just not getting honest answers. But it has come out that he had a high count of different type of drugs in his system that was basically causing him to have respiratory failures. That in and of itself, and now this is where the police officers, because they're not they only have a basic amount of medical training. So for them to be able to recognize certain things, it seems as though they weren't recognizing those, and that's what led to his death. I think it was a contributing factor that led to, ultimately him passing away, dying, and then the whole city just erupted in violence. But what else we're not seeing is, as tragic as that was, to have people bust in. I had a couple of people I knew that lived in Minneapolis. From my previous years, people I'd met over the years, and they were telling me, hey, they're bringing in buses of people to burn down the city. And then at first I was shocked, but then when I thought about it, I said, wait a minute, you need to start taking pictures of this stuff. They're like, these people are not here, they're just burning down the city. And some of them are saying they're being paid. So that was something that very, very quickly irritated me, that they're going to burn down a whole city to make a political point. And these are people's businesses. These are people's livelihoods. Some of these businesses were owned generations through families. So when we look at leadership and we look at, making a positive impact, what they could have done for positive impact is done some things where they set up the economic zones for, the African American community, or something along those lines that can get them to get up on their feet. I think the biggest thing, and this is the same thing I've seen, I've had a lot of people approach me about coaching to help them get their mindset right. We have an education system that's failed, and then we also have a system where people think they cannot move forward, that you can never be as good as someone else or have a business like someone else. And a lot of times anybody can do all these things. All you got to do is file the paperwork, or all you have to do is look up the research. If you do the research, you're going to find a way, and if you want it bad enough, you're going to find a way to get those things done. But we have basically have a society, and it's not just in America, it's around the world, where when we set up a system that rewards people for not doing anything and not having any desire or motivation, and it's not even just motivation, I would take it even further to a vision for their life. Where do they want to be? Where do you want to be 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now? But our school system and all these other things are basically putting out robots. We have school systems that you go in and it's basically pushing out, either you're going to fail out of your school and now you can't really get a job, or even when you do come out, you're not really there to be an entrepreneur or a business owner. You're there to do what? You're there to work for a company.
I think to get from a person that's at point A and a point B where it's entrepreneurship, they really need a mentor, because you can't really be educated to get to that high successful point. So, to be good at any profession, so that's why I'm continually putting my time into this mentor social network that I'm doing. I just think people should be sharing their skills with each other professionally, no matter what it is.
I think that's absolutely critical what you're doing. I remember you had said something about, and here you are, you're setting up this mentorship program. I think that in and of itself is going to be huge, because there's so many people out there. And, I had mentors my whole life, and I'm sure you've had a few that point you in the right direction here and there.
Absolutely. I still do.
And yeah, absolutely. And there's still people I reach out to, ask for advice, or, hey, what do you think about this? And those are the type of people you want to listen to. If we can get that out there to where there's people out there that can actually mentor people, but it's not just mentor them, actually care about what they're doing. It takes a lot of, when you help someone, if you truly help someone, you're actually giving a piece of yourself. And that's key. Leadership is a privilege. Mentorship is leadership in action. You're basically helping somebody. And a lot of people don't understand that. Leadership is a privilege. When I was a leader, and the different leadership positions I had in the military, for example, my last 3 years in the military, I had a whole bunch of people that I was in charge of. And one of the biggest things, let me tell you this, Nikos, I would go home exhausted sometimes mentally, because I had people's careers on the line. I had to make sure that I was pointing them in the right direction for their career, but making sure they were doing the things, and at that time, that were going to help advance their career in the future, and making sure sometimes they might not agree with you, and you're trying to get them to understand, hey, these are the things in this career field that you need to do to advance. And sometimes there would be arguments about that, and I remember watching one person, they never got advanced again because they didn't listen, and after the fact, they were very upset. But it was myself and some other leaders that had to sit them down and say, hey, listen, we've told you over and over. We even had it in writing, okay, telling them exactly what they had to do, but they just didn't want to do it. So sometimes some people want that help, and they're going to take action on the advice you give them or the recommendations. But some people are, you're just not going to be able to get through to them, and that's the sad part. And that, I always remembered the ones that I couldn't help, because those were the toughest, because you spend usually 80 to 90% of your time on the people who aren't going to eventually listen. It's like having two kids. One is a straight A student, and you barely have to spend any time with them because they have their own motivation and they have their own standards for themselves to get those A's. And then you have another one that's getting D's and F's. They're basically getting ready to fail, and no matter what you say, they just won't listen.
Sounds like me, man. When I was a kid.
Hey, that was me as a kid too.
I was so lazy. I was so lazy.
Yeah, but I had to. It's when I joined the Marine Corps that I did a complete turnaround, and it was a mental turnaround that I knew right then that, okay, this is what I really wanted. Now I have to take action on it.
The trouble about laziness is that it feels good at the time. It's a dopamine hit that basically blinds you from the dopamine hit that you'll get in several years' time if you work hard. So it's very hard to see the perspective of long term, and that's why you need some really strong guidance. Me personally, it's God that does that. God shows me and it's not that showing me the future, but his voice warns me about me being a lazy, to get off my backside basically, and it still happens. If I sit down and have a couple of weekends gaming away, drinking energy drinks, pizza, it's the big man upstairs that it gives me the feelings. Nobody, no man is basically forcing me to do that stuff. Anyway, I digress.
No, that's actually really good because it happens to everybody. I stopped working out for a few days, and I had to think to myself, okay, I need to get back in the morning, get up and work out. And because when I worked out, I knew that set my day up for success, because during my workout, I actually mentally would think and walk myself through the day and the things I need to do. And then once I, would get done with the workout, take a quick shower, grab something to eat, and then I would take off. But the days I didn't, I was lost, because I didn't have that time for myself to think and, get started. Because sometimes I'll do the workout and then maybe, some slight meditation, something along those lines, where I'm just letting my body relax, and I'm basically envisioning how my day is going to lay out. Even though there might be some changes, I'm envisioning where I want to go, and that's what gives me the motivation. That gives me the drive. It's all about this, discipline. Have that discipline, do what you got to do, and we all fall out of it. And the consistency, it's got to be consistent. Now you can have, like I said, you can have some hiccups and some bumps in the road where we kind of slack off a little bit, but it's over the long term, were you consistent more than you were inconsistent, and that's the key right there.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if you heard my latest podcast. It was on idolatry.
I heard part of it.
So basically, I like when it comes to Bible teaching, I like strong stuff. I think as men we need whiskey when it comes to Bible teaching. Otherwise yes. we'll fall asleep. We need to hear it strong. And I kind of search around for people that kind of feed me like that. And this guy from Nigeria, I don't know, I got recommended to him on LinkedIn, Joseph. And I really respect that guy, and that's why I'm having on the show, just letting him do the full Nigerian style preaching. But he's a man of character, and I talked to him about the money thing, because like there's a lot of problems with like perceptions on other podcasts, atheist podcasts, agnostics. They're always making fun of Christians and the money thing. So I just asked him, what do you think about church and money? And he's very like, when he was a pastor, he didn't actually earn money from the church, and that for me is, I respect that a lot. He still had a job, and so but I just enjoyed him talking about idolatry. And I think also education and psychology can be an idolatry. When we look at people that are hurting in America, we can say, they're lazy, they should get off their ass and work. But I mean, I look back when I was a kid, when I was a teenager, I was on my backside all the time playing Halo and all these games, and I didn't actually get to that strength to study until I got saved, until I met Jesus. So, for me, the solution to society is not just psychology, or we need to tell these people they should work hard. That solution, but actually to introduce them to God Almighty is the only way for me. God Almighty plus education, God first to get them basically off this bad track for anybody. And
yeah, and I think
people leave out the God part.
Well, and here's the thing, right? If you look at anybody who follows a lot of the religions around the world, I'm a Christian, but if you've met anybody who follows Buddhism or these different religions, most of the religions have a strong backbone, and you have to be consistent, and it gives you a base. It gives you like a foundation under your feet to stand on. It actually gives you direction and can point you in the right direction, for doing good things for those around you, not just yourself. And I think that's the key right there. It gives you, that secure foundation, and knowing, you do have the strength. And I think that's really important. I think that's really, kind of what you were saying. I think that's what's led to where you're at now. You've got a podcast, you're starting a mentor site. I mean, I think this is really key and it's going to help you as you go farther, because I just see great things for yourself, Nico.
If I didn't have a really messed up, I grew up in a council estate in Glasgow. I got into quite a lot of fist fights growing up. I don't know if that's like common nowadays, but I was in quite a bad place, And if I was like brought up, I'm not saying this is wrong, but if I was brought up like middle class or upper class, and I was a good boy at school and a good boy at home, and then I was successful later on, I couldn't relate to anybody. I'd basically be saying to the people that are hurting in America, that they're basically, the economy's messed them up, I'd say, look, education and work hard, and you shouldn't be lazy. But when I look back at myself, I can't say that. It was Jesus himself that took me out from the bad place. So I'm kind of glad that I did have that bad growing up experiences, because
it gave you a foundation of what not to do, right? And you're seeing, like right now, you're seeing the fruits of your labor of doing the right thing at the right time as much as you can. I mean, we can't all do it, but it's also, everyone's going to find a struggle in life. The question is, how are you going to react to it? Are you just going to keep struggling and lash out, or are you going to go out there and look for answers? And I think, when you were talking about any of your last guests, here's something to think about, and I think a lot of people need to think about this is, listen, you can be successful, and you can chase the money, you can chase the education, but at the end of the day, I'll want to work with you if I trust you. And that's what I try to tell people. That's what I try to tell my children. If people don't trust you, they don't want to be around you. And that is a huge key. Are you a good person? Because people want to be around good people. And that shows in your friendships. And, the other thing is, we've become a society globally. It's actually, becoming a global phenomenon where everybody wants that newest device, whether it's a cell phone or, something along those lines. Everybody wants the latest and greatest instead of actually having personal relationships like we are right now. Like right now, you and I are sitting here looking at each other. We're not even wearing a mask, right? There's a lot of places around the world where you can't look at each other and smile. And to me, that's usually the basic. Those are basic human instincts that we're missing out on right now.
Well, Vienna's got a good balance. If I go into a supermarket, people have to wear a mask. If you go into a small shop, you have to wear a mask. I don't have a problem with that. We can, you know, I think the mask thing is overblown a little bit, but each to their own. Um, in the UK, I will not be happy with another lockdown. I think we should be able to decide for ourselves what endangers our family and stuff like that. If we think that we're going to endanger older people, then we should take responsibility for that ourselves. Not have the government tell us what we can and can't do all the time. It's just I don't like it at all. You know?
Yeah, no, you got a good point there because you know human nature is to be able to make responsible decisions for yourself. And we're kind of at a point now where you actually have government telling you what to do. In the United States, for example, uh, we've had where the states make up their own decisions. Okay. Uh, Now, what people need to understand is the 50 states in the United States, it's not up to the president, President Trump or, if it was Obama, whoever it would be. It's not up to them to tell the states what to do. The states are supposed to, the way the U.S. Constitution is written and, the way everything was set up was the U.S. government, which has gotten really big, too big in my eyes, is now, it's supposed to facilitate, it's supposed to be the person just to broker agreements kind of thing. Each state is supposed to run itself. That's why we have such a disparity in the United States. It's not so much that the government's failed, the federal government. Everybody thinks the federal government just giving out more money all the time is going to fix things. It's not how it works. It's called being responsible. Like, for example, you and I, you have to manage your checkbook. Well, we have 50 states. We have states that cannot manage their own checkbooks. And the states are billions of dollars in debt. Then we have other states, they have actual surpluses. So, the personal responsibility, I think the state's doing that. And like you're saying, and it trickles down to individual responsibility. Like you were saying, you could be there in a market and if there's some older people around, put the mask on, be respectful for them. And I can see that. If and maybe if they ask you nicely, hey, yeah, no problem. And I don't see a problem. Taking the personal responsibility away from everyone, that's where the problem's at.
Let me just say, I'm just going to shut the window and stop the local wildlife coming in here. We still have temperatures of about 24 degrees, so a lot of flies around and stuff. Yeah. Yeah. Big government. I was researching about history and about America and the UK. I was shocked to find out that America fought against the UK because the tax rate was like 8% or something like that. They didn't want it.
Yeah.
8%? And so we're going to fight you, England. So.
Yeah, and if you look at the tax rate now, it's way past that.
Yeah. What does it want to do in California? 75% or 90% or something? Eventually, if things go the way people are talking.
Yeah, I loved California, but I lived there for 5.5 years. I had to leave because, I loved it because where I lived, in 2 hours I could be in the mountains where there was snow, or in about 2 hours and 15 minutes I could be on the beach. Depending on what I wanted to do that weekend, okay? But the state has mismanaged its money, and the people is out. I see a lot of celebrities, and certain companies have acted out and actually come to Florida, where I'm at.
So I missed the last 10 seconds there.
Can you keep paying all those taxes?
I missed the last 10 seconds. Can you repeat?
Yeah, no. Being in California, all the high taxes. Now we have all these companies that are leaving California and they're going to Texas, and they're coming here to Florida.
Yeah, Joe Rogan left.
He's left. He's gone to Austin, and he's now on Spotify. And he's doing it. He's even said, if it kept get, and he said it's like he was waiting and waiting, like trying to hopefully that California was going to get it together over the last few months. But seeing the direction they were going is when he finally made the decision to leave. And I think that's pretty sad because, and it's not because Joe Rogan is an icon. He's a great podcaster. He's funny. He's done some pretty funny things. When you watch some of his podcasts, he has great guests. But at the same time, he shouldn't have to leave based upon taxes.
Oh, so he's left because of taxes, right?
Yeah, just the cost of living, all the taxes, everything else that was going on, then the wildfires. He was just, and then all the riots, and the state was not doing the right thing when it came to criminals and riots. There's a difference between protesters and rioters. Protesters show up with signs and they're trying to get everybody's attention. Rioters, they burn stuff down, they destroy property, and a lot of times innocent people get hurt. That they're just trying to maybe do their jobs, go about their life. So those are things that made him to leave and have made a lot of people leave. And it's not just California. New York has done the same thing. A lot of people have left. I've met people here recently that have just come down from New Jersey and New York, and they said they'll never go back. We just asked them not to bring their politics down here. Because the state of Florida, we don't have a state tax. So the only tax you pay is maybe a county tax for your property, which is a property tax. But other than that, you're just paying federal tax. So Florida is one of the few states in the United States where you don't pay a tax to the state.
Mm-hmm. I heard recently somewhere that there was a state that allegedly people went there and deliberately created fires and made about 1 million people homeless, and apparently there's 100,000 men have formed an army or something, and they're going to take over some state. Is that actually any? Is there any legitimacy to that?
I don't know. I know a lot of the fires they're saying were arson in Oregon and California.
Yeah, Oregon, I think it was.
Washington State. I know they've caught a lot of arsonists. There was actually one person who was actually just another civilian, was driving and actually saw the person on the side of the road lighting a fire, starting a fire, and actually called the police. The person was armed, I think, if I remember correctly, and actually held the person with their firearm until the police arrived, so the police could take that person into custody. As far as 1 million man army,
no, 100,000 men.
100,000. Are you talking about 100,000 firefighters or 100,000?
I just heard that there was like 1 million people were homeless, and then 10% they're forming into some army.
I haven't heard anything about that. I will tell you, I spoke to certain people that I served in the military with, and many of them are kind of irritated right now with what's going on in the country. And not all military guys are Republicans, or some are Democrats. I mean, everybody's got their own views, right? Military, everything's we lean more conservative because of the duties we've had to have. But I think after talking with some friends, we're going down a bad road as a country, because we all realize we have to be able to defend our homes and our families. Mm. And a lot of these guys, there's groups forming, I guess you could say militias, to, if anything happens, they're not going to put up with it. To threaten the president. When Obama was when I was in the military, I never would have thought of threatening the president. And I wasn't a big Obama fan. It wasn't nothing against him personal. I didn't like a lot of his policies. So, a lot of us are seeing now where even our politicians, people are inciting violence and saying we're going to burn it down. When you make incendiary comments like that, you need to be incited for sedition and treason. Mm-hmm. Things like that you just don't do that, especially as a politician in the United States. And we have a lot of that going on right now. It's like they've all lost their minds.
So I think some people are treating this like some computer game that there's no consequences to if society collapses. But we all saw how, we all like these disaster movies where, like viruses break out and, it's exciting. But we all remember how boring it was in lockdown. It still really drives you nuts almost. So like,
yeah.
people don't realize that, if they manage to cause anarchy and government falls and society falls and they have this utopia, they're going to be much worse off than what it was in lockdown. We have all these good comforts and luxuries and health because society works and there's law and order. But if you try and take away all that, you're going to have something that resembles an African country in the civil war at one point. It would be just, what do these people want to get from this? They just want to have, it's, you look at a beetle, right? It's very nice and pretty, but you stamp it out, you've crushed it, you've destroyed it. Now put it back together again, So like, I just don't see what anarchists.
It's all about power.
Yeah.
To me, it's all about power. It's about greed and money. I've kind of been following this for a few years. The amount of money that changes hands. Politicians. A lot of times, people that are running for a specific office or to become a Republican or a Democrat, they want to be able to become a representative in Congress or a senator. And the issues I see are a lot of these people, they had something, some skeleton in their closet. And when they, they'll run on a platform or whatever their views are and what they're going to do for the people and their districts or states, what have you. But what happens is once they get there, it's like all of a sudden they don't, what they said they were going to do, they don't do. And it's as though they get there and they're basically told, okay, hey, that was really great what you said you were going to do, but yeah, you're here now, and this is what you're going to do, or you won't be here much longer. And that's another thing, in America, a lot of us want term limits. Make sure that you cannot do more than like maybe 8 years in office. And then you have people like Nancy Pelosi making statements such as, well, we would never get anything done. Yeah, you would. If you're there for the right reasons, you'll get things done. It's not hard. But we have people that have been so ingrained in politics for so long and become addicted to the power that they are not serving us anymore. They don't look upon the American citizens as equals. And that's the problem.
If you read a list in the US Constitution, it's people have interpreted the Constitution with such, like this enabling clause at the last bit. They've basically given themselves powers that are just not in the Constitution. Like the Constitution gave specific powers that were sort of spelled out for certain situations, but then I think the clause that says Congress shall make laws enabling to support with existing laws, that basically covers 90% of what your big government is, and
Yeah, and we also, when you also look at the Bill of Rights were written specifically because the founding fathers of the U.S. Constitution, they understood that down the road there might be a situation such as this that we're in now, where we have basically a constitutional crisis, that there are certain unalienable rights that cannot be taken from each person. Like that is given to you by God. Period. And, a lot of people, if you look up the Bill of Rights for the United States, just look up the Bill of Rights, you see all those things. The founding fathers knew that there was one thing they couldn't take from everybody, and they wanted it in writing.
The Bill of Rights is different from the US Constitution.
Yes.
After the Constitution?
Yeah, and if you look it up, and I'll send you a link after the show.
Is it the same as the UN? What's the difference between the Bill of Rights and the UN Convention on Human Rights?
I've looked at the UN Convention's Bill of Rights, or Human Rights Bill, but it's there. To me, what I see in the United Nations Human Rights Bill, it's to mirror somewhat the U.S. Bill of Rights. The issue I see is the United Nations doesn't really follow through with it. I mean, they say these things, but they never follow through on guaranteeing those rights to individuals.
Does the UN actually? How many rounds of bullets have UN fired in order to keep peacekeeping? Do they actually do anything?
So the United States, I've seen some United Nations troops. I've seen troops from other nations. Some were extremely professional. The UK obviously has very professional military. And I've seen other professional militaries from even different continents. They were very professional. But then I've also seen some that were very unprofessional. Uh, I wouldn't trust them for 5 minutes uh, because just their training, their professionalism, it just wasn't there. And I think when they say they're going to send the United Nations force in the United States, for the longest time, like we don't, the United Nations, the United States does not want to fall under the United Nations when it comes to military command and control, and it's because of our training, our professionalism. We know what needs to be done, and also I'm sure there's some you can throw in some the interest of the United States, right? The U.S. military will guarantee U.S. interest, but when you look past that, the United Nations is not really one of the most professional when it comes to military commands, because it's usually just a whole bunch of nations that just come together at any given time, and then you have to shake out who's in charge. And some of those countries they're just not very professional.
I've been thinking about America, and people are comparing it to like the latter stages of the Greek and Roman civilizations. And if America falls, basically China will take over. Because even though I don't like a lot of what the U.S. military has done in the last 50 years, everyone in the UK just does not like what happened in Iraq. Um, I suppose we're never really sure if Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction or not. But if America falls, then basically China will be the world superpower.
Yeah, and that's one of the things. I've had discussions. Drinking a beer. Sitting with some guys I used to serve with, and that's one of those things that comes up in conversation. That and it's not just trying to become a superpower, but it's some of the human rights abuses that they've committed. What they've done to the Uyghurs in China, where they've been putting them on trains and shipping them off to concentration camps. The social credit scoring that they have going on there now, where you have your phone, they have all your biometric data. So if you're walking down the street, the cameras will pick up. And everything's reading off each other, and they basically give you a social credit score. If you don't have a certain score, you can't travel, you can't do anything. You basically have no freedoms. You're locked down to that certain area within the city. Uh, you know, and that's when I look back on a lot of the things that are going on in the United States, uh, it's kind of mirroring that. We even have the freedom of speech. Now we have cancel culture going on, where you can't say certain things. You can't agree to disagree. If you say something that a newscaster has broke down as racist, now you're a racist. Why? Because you don't agree? No, that's what humans are supposed to do. We're supposed to debate. We're supposed to be able to agree, disagree, and agree to disagree.
I don't know why I've been so triggered with LinkedIn recently. When Elliot Gibson was banned, I basically changed my title to something like Elliot Gibson was banned or something like that, and he's been banned permanently now. So and then we have this little group we're basically collecting these refugees from LinkedIn, and people are like, let's create a new platform. I'm like, okay, let's make something alternatives to what is the status quo.
Yeah, and I think that's a shame on LinkedIn's part for doing that. It bothers me that they're going to ban someone that is basically providing another point of view.
I really liked Earl's post. It was really entertaining. A lot of the stuff on there I just do not care about at all, but his posts were really good to read.
Yeah, and I think people need to understand. He was talking from the perspective of being a Black American. I mean, think about that. And he got banned because he's given his honest viewpoint, but it was based upon his politics and his belief in God. So I think for them to do that, LinkedIn and a lot of these platforms that continue to do this, they're going to be opening themselves up for lawsuits, because I don't think they understand the gravity of what's going on. Because they're not supposed to be censoring people. I think it was Executive Order 230. I can't remember. I think the number was 230, but it's an order that the president signed saying, "Hey, you can't be censoring conservative voices." And Earl is a conservative voice.
So what point does it
I
does at what point does a platform? Because I'm making a platform. At what point does the platform have a responsibility? Because like if I'm at a website, I can have. I don't have to have you as a member on the website. I can say no, you're not on there. But at what point do you have that responsibility?
well, I think a lot of that boils down to people are saying they're actually becoming. I don't want to say editorial. It's basically where they start censoring views and the voices of others. Now you have become a publisher. And what's ended up happening with that is, that's against the law. That's why Trump came out with his laws and stuff. So I'm going to be interested to see how this goes. You know, I've had discussions. One of the things I've been seeing, and I've asked some of my buddies, and they actually probably see the same thing happening, is, the president and certain individuals are going to get silenced before the election, either, right before or right after.
Did I?
And
Did
we,
sorry, on you go. I keep butting in.
no,
It's
go
this
ahead.
lag in the. I missed doing in-person podcasts, man. It's been like a long time. I want to go to America, tour America, and visit as many guests as I have on the show and do like in-person ones. So hopefully,
Yeah, this, yeah, listen, America's always welcomed people with open arms that want, and, people that want to come here and move here. I always tell people, the greatest thing any country can do is for you is you to go there and accept that culture and become part of it. It's when countries take in people that don't want to be part of that culture, and you get bad results, because now those people are now, it's basically kind of like an insurgency. You have people that are living there that want to tear down the system, that basically gave them a life, gave them, some type of hope for a better life, and now all of a sudden they want to tear that down. So that's kind of where we're at in the United States right now. We're going through a lot of that, and like I was telling you about the education system, it's become very one-sided. 9 out of 10, I think it's 8 or 9 out of 10 professors are liberal leaning, and hey, there's certain things I'm liberal with, but and I think all of us are that way. But I think when it goes to such an extreme, that's where things have. And we have people that want to make the country a very socialist country. I think that's the wrong answer, because once that happens, your business is now the government's business. Your food is now the government's food. So there's, I've met people that have lived in Eastern Europe, that have lived in Cuba, and some of these people were actually in the military. They had actually fled those places, and they were so grateful to actually serve in the U.S. military and to be, American. They actually got their citizenship through the U.S. military, and they were so grateful. And one of the things people need to understand is, when you have the opportunity to live in a country and to have great things happen and to be given opportunities, and you have suffered, like you had told me before, right? You were in a very dark spot in your life and you found God. It's the same thing if you're living in a communist country and you've gone without, you've had to struggle. It's going through the struggles that make you appreciative of the great things that are happening to you now. And I think we need to move in that direction and get it back to people starting to feel grateful just for being able to get up, have a roof over your head, having a good meal, and sharing maybe a beer or an ale with some friends.
look at that.
And we
On you go.
no, and we just need to get back to that,
Yeah.
and get away from this division. We
Look
have
at
more in common than we don't.
look at Ukraine. You got a generation of young people that basically caused a revolution because they didn't have a European Association agreement. Because in Ukraine it's like you earn about $100 to $200 a month, and then you did it right next to Hungary and Slovakia, and it's just completely different lifestyle. And
Yeah,
I don't know, maybe America should just make a a state or enclaves of in each state just for the Liberals and Democrats. So you just have, okay, everybody gets Liberal and Democrats. We'll arrange some property transfer and you just go live there, make a little wall around you and let you go on with let your experiment go on, like a big version of the Chad or something. The Chaz.
Well, no, it's funny you say that. I mean, say you did do that, okay? But the problem is you're going to have some people that are going to say, no, I've lived here, my family's lived here for generations. We're not giving up on this place. And people need to get back to being human and treating others with respect. And quit blaming other people for your downfall. If you're not happy where you're at, instead of lifting people, we need to lift people up and give them a helping hand. But here's the thing, there's the old saying, I can give you a fish right now, Nikos, and it'll feed you tonight. But if I teach you to fish, you'll eat for the rest of your life. We need to get back to that.
Exactly. Yeah, because mentoring is so much. If you're studying for yourself, university, you're learning skills. That versus having a mentor, you're probably going to learn about 20 times faster. Well, I mean, especially for technical stuff where, like how to code, but even any skill, like for example, mechanics in cars, and if we just like give some time away to train somebody up and doesn't have a skill, that it could help them. I mean, because there's going to have to be a lot of skill transfers or skill adjustments with this whole new world we're living right now. This whole remote working, and there's a whole bunch of people that are basically going to be out of jobs and out of jobs that they should be trained up in skills that are going to be in more demand. And that is, there's lots of mentoring sites out there, but basically what I'm trying to do is make it so that people are more motivated and they have like a process to mentor people. So, for example, I see, kind of like a once a week meeting with your mentors online or in person, and focus on transferring a skill, and I make a little profile page so you can see your contribution, and there's like some statistics, so you got like a little badge that you can stick onto your CV or something like that. So, I mean, this is one idea I had. There's, however you want to mentor someone, you got to figure that out. I just provide a little process for people.
No, that's a good point. There's certain jobs out there, especially that really need. It would really help to have those mentors and the people to guide you along the way, and the people that actually have a general interest in seeing you succeed. That's basic humanity, and seeing that type of thing. So
strong water.
Oh yeah, don't worry about it. Yeah, I've had some strong water before. I think it was called Absolute. But yeah, I think you're right, and I think we need to get back to just being human with each other and having that mentor and those mentorships. It's like having a good family home, right? You try to be good for your children. You're a mentor, and we need to get back to that. There's a lot of broken homes in the United States, and we need to get back to making sure that the children are taken care of, and they're brought up understanding you are going to struggle, but nothing's going to get handed to you. You have to, if you don't struggle, you don't have any type of struggle in your life, and everything's handed to you, it makes for a bad person.
Cool. So what's next for you, Doug, in your podcast and ambitions?
Yeah, so I'm actually linking the podcast now into my company, Anchor Strategies, to start doing some more leadership. I've got a few guests lined up this week. So I'm pretty excited, to get that going. And I think I'm going to open up with my company, it's to do leadership for company level type training, in leadership and understanding your people and that type of thing. But I've also been contacted to be a mentor, to be like a coach. So I might also have a side part of the business that does coaching for individuals over, like maybe a year, have like a year-long contract, 6 months, to try to help people and get them on track. I've had a coach before, and I actually paid for my coach, and he was wonderful. He helped me get past the fear. You think I wouldn't have fear being in the military, but he helped me get past that fear of, okay, hey, what's your vision for your company? Where are you going? And it made me really sit down and get my vision down and, what my purpose was and my impact. And that's what I want to try to help others do and companies.
Mm. Cool, man. Anything you want to share with this show? Well, you know.
Yeah, if you're interested in doing some leadership training, we can do it for, obviously, it's going to be pretty much virtual. You can go to anchorstrategiesllc.com. There's a contact page, or you can email me at doug@anchorstrategiesllc.com. And if you get a chance, hey, listen to my podcast, Truth with Danger Doug. It's on all the platforms. And if you like it, give me a 5-star rating.
Okay, well, Doug, thanks very much for your time. I appreciate it.
No, I appreciate you having me on, Nikos.
I look forward to your next episodes in your show.
Yeah, definitely down the road, man. Might have to get you on the show.
Oh, I'll be the first to ever guest on the show.
Yeah. I think we could work something out down the road. That'd be awesome.
Okay.
And talk about what you're doing down the road and let you get a little farther along with it, just to make sure it doesn't get hijacked. Your idea. So I want to make sure that you get a good solid footing, and we'll get some people behind you to help you out.
Okay, cool. Well, see you on Telegram.
Yeah, definitely. Hey, and you take care.
Okay. All right, everybody, that was Douglas Ward. Thanks for listening on Influencers Cafe. See you again shortly with another interesting guest.